Hi, so just a reminder, I'm Mark Tweedy. I'm here to do a short session with you on my experiences from LGR, which I'll talk about in a minute. Just like to say thanks very much to Beth and Ken. Just in line with Gallup and their research, you've trusted me to come here, and I hope that I can actually add some value for you. So there's your top two on the Gallup. Nice segue. The other thing, just in terms of the strengths, is I'm an arranger, apparently. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit of a story about a tax disc on that. Now, Adam, I used to work for Adam a long time ago, very influential in my career. And you might know the person I'm talking to, so a little test for you there, Adam, right? So, story of a tax disc. I was about, 15, 20 years ago, I was in a room like this as a young kind of, senior manager within a council. And the director came in of Children's Services with a tax disc. And he said, remember the days of tax disc, by the way? I would have brought a tax disc, but I couldn't because I don't have them anymore. And he said to the group, and I was thinking, brilliant, I'd heard a lot about this guy, I was thinking this is going to be amazing. He's very charismatic. And he said, I've just made some notes on the way down. I brought my notebook, and he held his tax disc up, and he literally made notes on the tax disc and then gave this fantastic kind of keynote for us all and inspired us all. And I thought to myself, that's really bad planning. That's really poor organisation. But I loved what you said, and I feel really engaged. And I actually thought about myself then, and I thought, I'm really bad at organising and planning. I'm really poor at it, but I quite like talking to people and getting people engaged and enthusiastic about something. So he became a really significant person for me and really inspired me to kind of get on in leadership. So anyway, I've got one of these cards, not a tax disc, and I'm replicating my hero, who was? Correct. What a legend. What a legend. So I have managed a number of leisure organisations around the country, one in Tameside. Thanks very much to Adam Allen, my former boss, who trusted me to go into that organisation, which is a leisure trust, and said, Mark, can you go in there and help them because there's quite an issue. £1.2 million annual operating deficit, council want to reduce the subsidy, lots of cultural issues in the organisation. And Adam really helped me go and sort that out. Well, he just let me get on with it, which is Yeah. I think the correct term was you empowered me, which is a euphemism for just get on with it and come back to me if you need any help, kind of thing. Yeah, you did. And I felt empowered, and I felt trusted, and I felt valued, and all those things which enabled me. The conditions were there to do good things, and it was fantastic. So that was a 7-year journey, and we got Organisation of the Year in the end, so we turned it round. It was a collective team effort. We got Organisation of the Year from UK Active and did some amazing things, and it was a brilliant time back in Tameside. Really, really good place-based development, working across teams in the council, and we really cared about that service, and we cared about working in partnership. And I know everybody does in the room here, and you'll be thinking about what's on the horizon and how you're going to collaborate. And that's why it's great that Ken and Beth are doing this stuff based on strengths and everything else to get us together to focus on the outcomes we want to achieve. I went on from Tameside to work in Northumberland, and then later in North Yorkshire, managing respective leisure organisations. In Northumberland, it was a trust, a big trust, 15 million turnover, and in North Yorkshire, it was slightly smaller, around 7 million, and that was a local authority trading company, which is a different way of incorporating, more contemporary way of incorporating leisure organisation. Again, arm's length from the council, but a trading company. The council is the parent or has ownership of the company, and the trust is a little bit more independent. So that's a nuance which you might want to explore more kind of going forward when you're looking at what might happen after vesting day. Do you call it vesting day? Yeah. That's about, what is it, 18 months, 2 years away? Yeah, so not long. It's going to go like that, isn't it? So in terms of vesting day, Northumberland, I picked up the management of that trust about 6 years after LGR. So I had the experience of the legacy of LGR and what that felt like, managing a relatively big arm's length organisation from the Unitary Council. And I can tell you now, the legacy was palpable, not in a good way. It had struggled to kind of recover from the disruption of LGR, 5 years on. And there was lots of other really challenging issues going on in the council, mainly culture-based. And as a result of bringing all those councils together with different ways of doing things into one, and people were trying their best, but it was really hard. And my job was to come into the Leisure Trust and really try and resolve the cultural issues and get the trust on an even keel so it was efficient and effective. And what I can tell you, just one example, is that 5 years on, because what happened after LGR, after vesting day, there was a year, and then all the leisure organisations formed as one under a new trust. And then 5 years after that, when I came in, they still hadn't got round to harmonising terms and conditions. So people were sat in the space where at one leisure centre, your terms and conditions and rates of pay were different than another leisure centre for doing exactly the same job for 5 years. So you can only imagine the kind of sentiment that went behind that. It was catastrophic. So as a leader going into that organisation, for me to talk about customer-facing outcomes improving and service improvement, there was this big barrier in the way, and that was we hadn't even harmonised terms and conditions. And eventually, within the first 18 months, I worked with the council and we got that done. We got it done, and that came at a cost of £3.5 million to the council around harmonisation, which was an unforeseen cost at that time. And obviously there was a big potential threat of fair pay and all the other things that were going on with that as well. So it's not only was it a cost, but it sucked a lot of resources out of the council to support the trust, which could have been spent in other ways. So that was a challenge. So I have that experience, and I can answer questions on that later and talk more about that. I also have the experience of North Yorkshire, where I was employed by Harrogate Borough Council at the time, a couple of years prior to LGR taking place. And I was charged with setting up a local authority trading company there. So Harrogate were putting their leisure services out into an independent company for the tax efficiencies, and also to give that level of independence to drive service development and a capital programme of about 60 million. So within a couple of years, we started and got a good way through the capital development programme, and we'd reorganised the organisation in terms of making it a little bit more efficient and effective than it was when it was sat in the council, because we had that flexibility to do that. And then I had the experience going through into North Yorkshire Council and becoming a company that was owned by North Yorkshire Council, not Harrogate Borough Council, because that had been dissolved. And I had the experience of what that felt like. And what North Yorkshire Council decided to do was take the whole service in-house. So it had one in-house leisure operation at the time. There was a number of others that were either in trusts or the trading company that I was. And what it decided to do was take the whole lot in-house. So unfortunately for us, running the trading company, which we were really proud of, that got dissolved and went into the council. So I have that experience as well. And whether that was a pragmatic officer-led decision or a decision based on political expediency is a debate to be had. But whyever that decision was made, there was a cost to that decision and implications. And that's what I can talk to you about today, and hopefully share some of my learnings so that you're kind of forewarned, forearmed, and starting to think about this early doors. Okay, so that's where I am. So I can tell you how it felt for me, but just to kind of quick fire, how does the notion of LGR feel to you? How does it feel? Anyone want to say one word, how it feels? Anybody?
A long way off.
A long way off, yeah.
In our organisation, I think it's the case that people just they think it's a long way away.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hit them yet.
Yeah.
So I think when we start these consultations, I think that's when things will change.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Massive, yeah. Where'd you start? Huge, isn't it? And the danger is, when you wonder about where to start, you procrastinate. I think Ken would say start anywhere, as long as you make a start. One of Ken's mantras. Anybody else? Exciting. Right, I'm going to stop there because that was my feeling too. I like change, so I was mega excited. I was thinking, brilliant, like all of us in the room, really passionate about physical activity. really passionate that we're not leveraging physical activity as well as we could be to really have an impact on community health and well-being, and that we could do better. So the prospect of LGR was, wow, going to bring all these other services together. We've got some scale. We've got some scale economy. We've got a pooling of all that rich expertise. Imagine the things we could do. We can make a real difference. So I was really excited for those reasons. And I was also feeling vulnerable. And the reason why I was feeling vulnerable was this. Because this equation is about event plus response equals outcome. You may have heard it before, okay? And the event is inevitable, which is LGR. You can't stop it. It's massive. It's going to happen. It actually feels a long way off, but it isn't. The outcome is, we all want the same outcome, don't we? So the outcome is actually, yeah, we're public servants. We want to do our best for communities. We understand where communities need support, and we want to provide that support. And actually, throughout this process, we don't want that to be adversely impacted. We want business continuity. We want continuity of service. We don't want people in the communities that we serve to have a poor experience, and actually we want to improve it as quick as we can. So you've all got commonality around your outcome. And I felt excited because of this common outcome, but I felt vulnerable because I knew that the response to the event would be different, because we've all got a different way of doing it. This massive problem, we approach it differently, don't we? And what I want to do today is just maybe bring to your attention some of the things that might not necessarily feel like a priority now, but should be a priority in terms of your response to this, and how you can kind of get a common approach to it, because your strength is in numbers, and your strength is where you can build consensus and commonality around your response and the approach, okay? Because you're going to have to make decisions, and the quicker you make decisions, the better, but they've got to be good decisions. So the collaboration and the communication is really important. So prior to vesting day, you might be thinking about these things, or you should be. And some of you might be waking up in the night about this stuff, and if you're not now, you might be in 6 months' time or 8 months' time, when you've had lots of conversations about it, but you haven't quite made the killer decisions yet. So you've got that kind of ground rush effect, you know, like you've jumped out of a plane and you've got a parachute in the ground suddenly coming towards you. And I do remember, you know, the conversation in North Yorkshire was always about safe and legal. And obviously, we're public sector, we're risk averse, aren't we? We're, you know, that's who we are, you know, so it's all about managing the risk. And this will be a test of everybody's leadership, just because of the risk, let alone the people stuff. It's a real test, but you have to make decisions. And post-vesting day, you'll get to the more exciting stuff, which is working together, pooling expertise, economy of scale, all that kind of stuff. But all that has a people consequence as well, doesn't it? So, are we familiar with this kind of narrative? Because the way we talk about LGR, or the way we talk about everything we do, is really impactful and has a big impact, not only as us as leaders and managers, but a greater impact on the people in our teams that are at the coalface doing the work. Anybody used any of these terms before? I have. Some of which I thought it made me sound quite clever when I said them. I was quite proud of myself. But how is that received or understood? This is the stuff we need to be really mindful of when we're going through change. And I know you already know that, but it's knowing it is one thing, doing it is often something different, and how we can be consistent around our narrative, which is really, really important, because people out there will understand the messages differently. People see things differently, don't they? We're all different. And we acknowledge that. And when people see things differently, some people can see it as a threat. And when we see things as a threat, what's triggered is our kind of fight, flight, freeze response, isn't it? Now, LGR seems like a long way away, 18 months, 2 years, and it's not all going to be sorted on vesting day, because you're then still into all the change after that. So you might be looking for a 5-year period where people are like this. What does that do to people? It's bloody exhausting. It's really exhausting. And for those people out there that have got strengths like responsibility, which is one of mine, which is I need to take responsibility for this, I need to start influencing, making the change, I'm personally accountable, you're going to be burnt out within the first 18 months because you've got that weight on your shoulders. It's really, really difficult. So we need to be mindful of all this stuff. And when we get into change, which this is a change management situation, one of the perverse consequences of a decision that I experienced was listening to the narrative, look, we've got time, we're going to take our time to get it right. But the oversight with that statement was, well, yeah, we do need to get it right. We do need to take time. But the longer we take, the longer we prolong uncertainty. And the longer we prolong uncertainty, the longer we are leaving people in a state of potential threat, fight, flight, freeze, and all the personal and team consequences of that. So taking your time is a trade-off between making decisions and putting certainty there when there isn't certainty, because human beings want certainty, don't they? So it's how we compress the change management time frame so that we reduce the amount of time that people are spent in the trough. That's really important. That's going to be a massive leadership challenge because there are so many of you, there's so many moving parts and there's so much to do. It's a big challenge. This is another myth, isn't it, that people resist change. They don't actually resist change, they resist being changed. So one of the opportunities here is how you genuinely involve people in the change. But from my experience, what tends to happen is you get a lot of consultation, a lot of communication early doors. That doesn't always necessarily go to informing the quick decisions. And when you get to the point where decisions have to be made, they're often just made around the top table and not genuinely involving everybody. So people don't feel that they've been part of that decision making, and that is a sentiment that I've experienced. And really that sentiment is grounded in this, in that as leaders, we think we've got good oversight. We think we understand what the issues and challenges are, but the fact of the matter is we don't really. Because the higher we go up the ladder, the less we know and understand. And we take previous experiences with us and try to make decisions based on what we've experienced in the past rather than what's happening now. It's the people at the coalface that know the problems, that know what's going to be the challenges, and know inherently what the solutions might be. So that mechanism of really understanding what's going on and involving people is really, really important. And this research tells you that. So, pre-vesting day, post-vesting day focus, we've looked at that briefly. This should be our overriding focus. And this is all people-centered stuff. It's how we create a unified vision. And what that means is, how can we commonly describe amongst all of us in this room and all your teams what success looks like? And get a common description that we reaffirm with people all the time, because that gives people a huge sense of security, even at times of instability or uncertainty, because we can start to describe in terms of the outcome where we're going and what the upside of it might look like. And it's that common description of that vision. So it's forming the vision and involving people early in that. And how we pool expertise around that and engage people to do so. And focusing on the upside in terms of maintaining morale and helping that kind of cultural integration. And communication is something that is inherently difficult in the public sector, where we've got huge organisations delivering vastly different services in all different places. It's really hard. So that's something that's really important here, and it's got to be meaningful. So I remember applying for a job 20 odd years ago in a council, and it was like Nolan principles all over the person spec. Okay. Now I can honestly say that in my, I don't know how long it is, maybe 30 years or whatever, 25, 30 years working either for the public sector or arm's length, there's lots of times where I could really question actually whether these were the reality. This is the time to double down on your values and behaviours. This is the stuff and the narrative. This is what's going to keep the wheels on. It's really, really important. So how do we do that? you need some kind of transition plan, and you need to be working on that collectively for the plan. And any plan needs a framework. And this is a framework that I've used for planning. It's something I do outside of the room around leadership development, purpose, direction, mindset, and environment. Your ultimate outcome here is to create the environment as soon as you can where people feel genuinely engaged and empowered. It starts with common purpose, and actually we can get really excited, can't we, about where this is going? So the purpose is there for us. Actually, there's a real upside. The direction is where the planning bit comes in. And this has been a weakness in my experience, where we've got real plans with real accountabilities about where we're going. We're very good at bringing people together in the room and having conversations, but what we're not good at is bringing them in the room saying, these are our objectives, this is what we're going to do together, and this is how we're going to measure it in terms of the transition leading up to vesting day and what happens afterwards. And with that honesty and integrity around that trust, which is the top Gallup one, which comes back to your Nolan principles. That's really important. And then in terms of mindset, there is a bit of therapy required here for yourselves, your people and your teams, and to understand that, there's a level of capability that needs to be built around helping people deal with uncertainty and empathy and that kind of stuff, and reinforcing, and you do that by reinforcing the vision, the purpose and the upside, but knowing that actually it's going to feel uncomfortable and being honest about that. That's really important to build trust. And all that, I Googled this, what is good governance? And all that, I've just said, it's just good governance actually. It's nothing new, it's nothing you don't already know. So if you only hang your hat on something something around this in terms of, this conversation back at the ranch with politicians and everything else, it's just let's get the governance right, but what does that mean? And the governance starts with the people around how you do it, the values you approach it with, the decisions you make, having the plan, having the key accountabilities. So what does a better narrative look like? Thinking about the Nolan principles, thinking about having a plan, thinking about trust and hope. It's this kind of stuff. And if you can hear yourself saying that stuff, if you already said it, well done you. That's brilliant. That's good leadership and management. This is going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. So be honest and get the narrative right. That's the starting point. That's the stuff, if you haven't done already, you can do now and you can do today. And it doesn't mean to say that, when people find themselves in that pit being a victim, oh, it's going to be a catastrophe, I'm going to lose my job and all this kind of stuff. Don't jump in the pit with them, all right? Use this narrative, bring people out. So what can you start doing together today, if not already? A strategic alliance, that's kind of started already. I can see that in the room. And well done to Heimburn before. Who did you join in the end? Pardon? Pendle, brilliant, yeah. So there's an alliance there started already, fantastic. So yeah, form that strategic alliance, but you need an alliance with a purpose, don't you? And you need an alliance with a sense of direction and a plan, and you need to get common values and principles behind that to take you through this process, that framework I was talking about before. And that comes with a shared vision and narrative. And this engagement with stakeholders, there'll be multiple stakeholders that you all work with that will all, it's like, what do we do? Do we put those on hold for a few years? How do we engage them in the process with us? That takes some thinking about, because you'll need those on the other side with the new Unitary organisation, particularly if you're working with health, which is challenging in itself because of the size of it and the complexity of it. So bring your stakeholders into that alliance. A shared audit. Now this is really, really helpful. So we did this in North Yorkshire and we did it with leisure organisations. And it was an audit which had a framework around, we adopted the Quest framework, which is a quality assurance framework. Anyone heard of Quest, Sport England? So, it doesn't have to be Quest, but it gave us a framework for an audit which looked at everything from health and safety to the customer experience and all the systems and processes and staff training that sits behind that. And we had a framework. And we just acted unilaterally away from the shadow Unitary kind of governance and said, we're going to do this. And we all got in a room together, all the leisure service leaders, and said, let's do an audit, let's find out where we are. What have we got in common? What's some of the good stuff people are doing? What's the not so good stuff? And how can we get some softer alignment now while we can? And we made unilateral decisions to do that. And it was really helpful. And it was a really good piece of information that we worked on and gave people purpose, not just at the top table, but right down at the coalface. It got everybody involved, which was really helpful. And then from that, we created a smart transition plan. And the word smart, which you've all heard of, is key. because it was about how we not just take accountability at the leadership and management level, it's how we put accountability right through our teams around things around that transition plan. Because if you're not engaging people in the process and all they can see is the threat, their mind kind of wanders, and that is not a good place to be. But if you're keeping people busy around something positive, which is engaging them in the process through a mechanism like an audit and a transition plan, which everybody can work on, then it's really, really helpful. So it might be joining up quality assurance frameworks across leisure organisations. It might be sharing data and understanding what insight looks like. It might be saying, look, can we do some joined up marketing campaigns now? We don't have to be in the Unitary to do that. We can join on that now. There's lots of things, if you think about it, you can get your people involved with at the coalface, which helps build relationships, helps deepen understanding of each other, and actually delivers a better customer experience. And that's the kind of soft alignment that goes on. And then if you can go one step further for that, if you've got jobs coming up and things like that, why not start looking at joint appointments, across, why not? It was a suggestion I made in North Yorkshire. I didn't quite make it happen because of the risk and this whole issue about sovereignty and everything else. Found lots of people putting barriers in my way on stuff like that. I couldn't get it, but I still think that's a good idea. Why not? It's a good idea. So if it can give you some takeaways, collaboration, communication and culture, I think that's what sums it up for me. Collaboration, but meaningful, deep collaboration. Communication with a purpose and with an outcome, which is where your audit and your transition plan comes in. And that cultural alignment around common narrative, values and behaviours is really important, and how you speak about that and reaffirm what success looks like all the time really starts to embed that culture. So that was it. I hope you found that useful. Hopefully that tees up some questions. I'm really looking forward to some questions. I think we've got 10 minutes, some questions. Brilliant. No such thing as a silly question.
The only one I thought about was just in terms of protectionism. I know in terms of your experience,
Yeah.
and particularly North Yorkshire,
Yeah.
you've got the council who are in a good position, a strong position.
Yeah.
They kind of throw the wrongs around their own services.
Yeah.
And possibly push other people out.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Because we might be in the same situation actually. Not that all my friends in Blackburn yet, but with Pennine, there's a kind of an underlying feeling that Blackburn are big.
Yeah.
Unitary.
Yeah.
Smaller districts.
Yeah.
Are they going to be consumed by Blackburn, or is it going to be a genuine collaboration kind of thing?
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just interesting your thoughts on that. Really.
Yeah, well, drawing on experience, what Northumberland did is they set up a trust, and they, the chief exec of the council at the time, the new Unitary, came in, and within 12 months, he terminated all the contracts with the existing leisure operators early, and paid them a settlement fee and formed this trust, and then allowed the trust, said to the trust, right, you're all in it together, kind of sort yourselves out, appointed a new chief executive to that trust. And they really struggled with that, but probably because they didn't have the support around them, and maybe some of the deficits in the leadership, but that was one way of doing it. What happened in North Yorkshire was that there was a number of trusts, there was a trading company, and there was one in-house service. And what the council decided to do, after support with the consultancy, is bring it in-house. That's what they did there. And I think there was that sense in North Yorkshire that they were pushing everyone out and bringing it in-house. And I think that felt more like a political decision rather than a pragmatic decision, because there was a cost to do that. Quite a big cost to bring it in-house. Big cost with a tax efficiency, missed tax efficiency opportunity, and the VAT, but also a big cost in terms of terms and conditions. So I'm still not sure why North Yorkshire made that decision. It may have been because they felt they wanted to have it in-house, to consolidate it, to understand it before to decide what to do with it, whether they were going to then do a procurement event, put it out, and then achieve the savings further down the line from having an outsourced contract, or whether they generally thought, in-house is going to work better because we can look at integrating it easier with all our other services. But it felt at the time that was more of a political decision in North Yorkshire to me, which I was against, rather than a pragmatic one. So I think what I'm saying, to answer your question, Adam, is there's always decisions made on what people, individuals think are right. And if they haven't got the full, deep understanding, sometimes you might feel those decisions were wrong. I felt from my own experience, and I might be being controversial here, but I felt that the North Yorkshire experience, there was too many high-level decisions made and not enough consultation for people that really understood the landscape and what might be the most effective way forward. The consultation didn't really feel genuine, which is, I think, led to. I still think this day was not the right decision. So I think, in terms of avoiding it, it's about the genuine consultation where you feel listened and heard, and then if the decision is made, at least you can get the explanation to why that decision was made. And I felt that was, for me, that wasn't consistent with my experience. Does that answer your question?
It does, though. It does.
Yeah.
It kind of leads me on to thinking about planning as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because as you get closer to vesting day,
Yeah.
people start to rush and start to panic, and they don't think of the consequences so
Yeah.
much. So there's something there about start and thinking, right, planning what you want at the very start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than, getting
Yeah.
some kind of oddball directory close to the day to say, oh, did the mother trust in house? And then getting some traction with it.
Do you know what? I couldn't have explained it better myself, actually. It absolutely is about the planning and making this period between now and when it happens really valuable so that you can make the best decisions. You're absolutely right. That's it. That's absolutely it.
Just a thought on Adam's question to add to that. I think one of the things we've learned in Together Active Future and kind of our sort of strange role within the system is there's some value in having almost like an objective outside, like some support with facilitating the conversations around the big decisions. There's so much power that's held by the person who's kind of inviting everyone else to the meeting, and sort of, even if they're not officially like chairing a meeting, the way that spaces are convened and organised and then enabled around decision making sometimes really benefits from having someone who's not directly involved. And that's what a lot of what we've found in our place where we're Together Active Future is, where we've been able to provide almost like that. Slightly like we know the place, we're in the place, we're working in the place, but we're not necessarily directed to the actual decisions that are happening, actually providing like some external, but like also external that knows, if you know what I mean, knows the context of the place to provide some facilitation in those kind of conversations can be really valuable in making sure everyone's voices are shared and equally heard. That feels like maybe like a practical thing that colleagues can think about when you're getting together with across council departments, but also across organisations. Like, is there someone from, if two departments in Ribble Valley are talking to each other about something, is there some value in having a colleague from Pendle to come and just like facilitate the conversation so that it feels more equally balanced, if that makes sense? Because if I'm on council, invite everyone to the meeting and they're leading on the HR bit, then they invite and everyone, and they set the agenda, like there's actually a lot of power in that is dissipated then and shared if you have someone objective, if you like, facilitating the decision making process, but not being involved in the decision making process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think and coming back to the event plus response equals outcome, the outcome we want is an efficient and effective service model. And the two things are totally interdependent, because if you are spending more money than you need to operating assets, then that's less money that you can spend in communities, actually doing the real valuable work. So you want a lean, efficient leisure operation. So you can spend money doing the people-facing stuff. That's what you want. So that's the exciting bit. And that's why the incorporation of the model is really important, whether you're in-house, whether you're a trading company, or whether you're a trust. My own personal view is that the sweet spot is a local authority controlled trading company, because that is not going to be taking money out of the place to shareholders or to a central office somewhere else in London or wherever it might be. You've got ownership by the parent company, which therefore carries the risk. The council carries the risk, but you've got that agility and independence of a separate company, and you've got the tax savings on top. So if if the decision was actually where we're heading, we're going to consolidate this into one model and we're going to choose a trading company model. For me, I think in the current climate and where we are, that is a sensible model to consider. It gives you scale economy and it gives you efficiency, and then you can start early doors. And also there's no procurement event for that either. You can do it fairly quickly, so you can press in the change period. You're allowed to bring certainty in where you can quite quickly, settling everybody down. And you can start working towards that fairly early doors in terms of those higher level positions when people are leaving the respective trusts and things like that across the place. You can start looking at joint appointments and things like that early doors. So that would seem for me quite a pragmatic approach, but it's how you're having this discussion now. Maybe we've just started it, but how are you going to take this discussion out of the room and start thinking about this now? Because whether we like it or not, the track record is, I've just shared you quite a catastrophic experience about Northumberland, which was costly and quite challenging for a lot of people, and you don't want to replicate that. And that is with the planning, like you just said, Adam, it's planning early.
Just picking up on that, and you said in Northumberland, even 5 years after the legacy of LGR, the culture was really negatively affected.
Yeah.
And then the amount of, which I presume then had a negative effect on performance of the residents, and the effort that you had to put in to bring that back. And given that the emphasis is on making sure we're safe and legal from vesting day, and although we've got an HR work stream, there's not really that cultural work stream or people work stream. From your experience, would you suggest that we should be having that work stream, and how would you persuade the leaders at the top that we need to?
Short answer is yes. Are you workforce development HR person?
No, I'm not actually. I'm not HR and policy and engagement.
Yeah. I think the way to influence this is that, culture eats strategy for breakfast is the phrase, isn't it? And whilst we hear that and we listen to that mantra, we ignore it at our peril, and it's how you actually do it. And I think that's what I was trying to do with the presentation, saying these are the things that you might be thinking about, really important, but these are the things that you really need to focus on. It's the people stuff, because if you don't, performance will dip. And performance dips, in terms of, and in leisure, it's operating in open market conditions. You have to generate revenue coming through the door. And the way you generate revenue is by delivering a high quality service, which gives a good customer experience. And if your people aren't in the right place, then they're not going to do that. It's going to affect your bottom line. And it's also going to affect you in terms of T's and C's and harmonisation and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the argument, but it's how you get leaders to focus and value the people-centred stuff, which is just as, if not more important than the safe and legal, and which is your question, isn't it? And I don't think there isn't a silver bullet. But it's you all agreeing in the room that that's where we want to put a priority, is the people. This is what success looks like in terms of a really people-centered approach to transition and the future. This is how we're going to do it. The interventions we're going to do from an OD perspective, from having a strategic alliance perspective. This is the mindset we're going to adopt, and the language we're going to use, the narrative. And saying this is a plan, this is what we need to do. And there's some accountabilities in that about what success looks like and the measures and who's doing what. So you're actually managing that whole people journey, from an OD HR perspective, rather than just making assumptions that we've told everyone they need to calm down. Don't worry, it'll all be fine. And now we're going to get on with the safe and legal stuff. So can you all get your health and safety risk assessments to me by, next month, please, and we'll get that sorted. That's ignoring the people side. And that's the bit that I'm trying to talk about today, which I think is why you've asked that question. Can't think of a simple answer, but hopefully I've...
Yeah.